I'd like to welcome everybody back to Alabama Care's second broadcast we're doing today here in Huntsville. And we are with Mrs. Melissa Anderson. And Mrs. Anderson is the project manager of the Childcare Enhancement with a Purpose program.
Yes.
And at this point, I'd just like to hand it back over and allow you to introduce yourself.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for speaking with us today. My name is Melissa Anderson. I'm the statewide project manager for the Childcare Enhancement with a Purpose project at United Cerebral Palsy in Huntsville. We are a statewide program funded by the Department of Human Resources to provide inclusion training for daycare providers, daycare teachers, family and group childcare providers, parents, and as well as relative care providers.
Now you say daycare providers there, so this program mainly focuses on birth to 5.
So we're actually funded for birth to 8 years old. So we do after school care as well, but primarily our focus is the birth to 3 early intervention age and then preschool age as well.
Now what types of trainings are you talking about doing with these daycare providers?
So there are several training programs funded by Department of Human Resources that provide training for typical child development. We do provide training for typical child development as well because we feel like it's important to understand child development, in order to recognize red flags if there are any. But our main focus is on inclusion. So we'll do trainings on just communicating concerns with parents, identifying red flags, how to use a developmental checklist to identify children who might be at risk, and then a lot of behavior training. So we tend to stay away from the disability-specific topics as much as possible just because we're really there. We want the teachers to focus on the child and not the disability. So our goal is to train the teachers on how to include that child, whatever their concerns or issues may be.
Yeah, whatever their abilities are, however they're doing there in the classroom.
Yes, it doesn't matter to us necessarily what the disability is.
Now, the Child Care Enhancement with a Purpose is project, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Is that just here in Huntsville, or?
It's not. So we hold the contract here at United Cerebral Palsy in Huntsville, but we subcontract with all of the United Cerebral Palsies throughout the state.
Okay.
So we have 9 teams, and each team has a developmental specialist and a project coordinator that does the training and the technical assistance visits in the classroom. We have teams in Birmingham at United Ability, and then we have Tuscaloosa, Anniston, Auburn, Mobile, Daphne, Troy, and Montgomery. Was that 9?
I don't know. I
think so. Yes, we have at all of the United Cerebral Palsies throughout the state. So.
And now, even if you're not, the child care provider isn't in that city directly, do you travel to the nearest?
We do. We cover all 67 counties in Alabama. So
that's awesome.
Each team, I think we have about 13 counties that we cover out of Huntsville, and then each team will have a wide variety of. They have a lot of travel.
Yeah, I was going to say a lot of on the road time there.
Yes.
Now, how many daycare providers have you guys trained?
So I was actually looking it up. Our fiscal year starts October 1, so we haven't finished out this year. But on average, just based on previous years, it's been about 7,000 childcare or daycare teachers, providers, home daycare, all of the different types of.
7,000.
Approximately statewide.
Out of 9 offices. That's a crazy number.
It's a lot.
800 or so per office.
And that's through training and technical assistance, which we can also talk about in a little bit. But yeah, so some of our trainings will have 1 or 2 teachers, especially if it's a home daycare where maybe it's just a teacher and an assistant. But then some of our trainings will do community training, so we may have 50 participants at one time. So
now you mentioned that home daycare. What are some other examples of providers there?
So we have there's 2 different types of providers that care for children in their home. They have a family home provider, which they're licensed usually for up to 6 in their homes, and then a group home provider, they can have up to 12 children in their homes, and they also will have an assistant with them, so to keep the ratios down.
Yeah.
Then we also have relative care providers, which are typically it's a relative that does not have custody. So they're not the primary, they're not the guardian, the legal guardian of the child. So maybe grandma is caring for the child or something like that. So they're also considered providers, childcare providers, and so they attend our trainings as well.
Yeah. So that's quite a bit of age range. And for a family or a parent, there are options out there.
Yes.
For those daycares. Now, we did talk a little bit about certification.
Yes.
I kind of want to talk about that.
Okay.
So when I think of like a daycare, I would want to make sure that they were up to par with my standards and the state standards if I'm sending my son or daughter there.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about that.
So there are, again, I mentioned that we're funded through Department of Human Resources. There's licensed childcare centers, and then there's licensed exempt childcare centers. Licensed childcare centers go through, are required to have so many hours worth of training by qualified presenters or contracts like the Childcare Enhancement Grant. There are several others in the state, and then there are licensed exempt, which are typically affiliated with a church or a religious organization, and they do not have the same licensing guidelines as a licensed center. So I will say though that a lot of the church childcare providers, even if they are not licensed by DHR, they still do follow the minimum standards set in place by DHR. So
why do you think that is? Why do you think there's some people that don't have to be licensed?
That's a great question. And it's only the centers that are faith exempt, and then there are also other exemptions, I guess. Provide childcare centers that are affiliated with like a government installation, like maybe Redstone Arsenal or something like that. They're licensed in a different way.
Okay.
Also, like universities, they're kind of licensed in a different way. So, and then Mother's Day Out programs, the ones that don't operate in a full day, maybe just a few hours a day, they're also licensed in a different way. So,
now, do you ever get anybody that doesn't have to be licensed that calls you?
They may. We honestly have not had anyone that doesn't have to be licensed call us. We can't, because of our funding source. We wouldn't provide any training for a childcare center that wasn't
DHR
licensed.
Is like, look,
right.
We're not going to.
So, but those centers that are DHR exempt, they're still listed on DHR's website. So as long as they are there, then we will absolutely provide training for, because we want our kiddos to be taken care of, and we want our families to have options. So
yeah, I think that's a big thing. Now, how many children do you think have been impacted?
So in just in North Alabama at the end of the last fiscal year. So I don't have the children numbers from statewide, because we all track them differently for different funding sources and things. But just in North Alabama, we had over 10,000 children.
10,000 in one fiscal year.
In one fiscal year.
That's a lot of kids.
So, and that's probably our 13 counties.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's a lot.
That's a big impact. And I feel like a lot of that training that the teacher gets and the care provider, it doesn't necessarily just go to the individual that we would expect it to. It affects the entire class.
Oh, absolutely. And we're counting those numbers as well. So, it is a big number, but yes, if we feel like if we're training their teacher and we're going in and working with the teacher on, different strategies and things in the classroom, then it's definitely benefiting all of the children.
Yeah.
So.
It's kind of like raising the bar for everybody.
Right.
Why do childcare providers, or how do they benefit from the training that you guys do?
So I feel like that a lot of childcare providers don't. They're definitely trained. They have a lot of quality training out there that's being provided for them. Sometimes they don't feel as confident taking children with special needs or identifying children with special needs. And once they do identify children, they don't know where do we go from there. So that's the relationship that we're trying to establish with them, is that if they have questions, concerns, if they just think something's just not quite right, just to give us a call. We can come out, we can train their teachers, we'll work with their teachers, We don't work with the child specifically. We are there to work with the teacher.
To empower the head of the classroom there.
Yes.
Now, what happens if the teacher notices something that they'd like to talk about? What does that process go for the family?
Okay. So, of course, we love for the family to be involved. But sometimes the teacher needs just a little baby step before maybe they want some reassurance before they talk to the family to be sure that what they're seeing is a true concern.
Yeah.
So they'll call us in. We have developmental checklists that we use, or if they have one that their center uses already, then we walk them through how to use that for all of their children so that they can see where they are developmentally, see if there's identify any red flags, and then we walk through with them how to talk to families about concerns. Sometimes they'll have us, they'll want us to come in and we'll try some different strategies and things, or the teacher we'll work with the teacher, model some different strategies with them to see if, maybe they just need a little more opportunity. Mm-hmm. So, but that's how the parent we don't have to have parent permission. We always send a letter and post for the families if we're going to be in and out of the classroom, so they know who we are.
Yeah.
And that it's okay for us to be there. But we're not there to work with their child, so we're there to work with the teacher. So we don't have to have parent permission to go in and visit, but we always look for the parents to be in the know. Yeah, definitely.
I feel like that's a really big thing for the teacher, because if you see a student that may be having some delays in whatever it is there, I would be reluctant to say something to the parent thinking that, well, who am I to say,
right,
that your son or daughter may need a little bit more help. But if you fall back on that checklist and you've had that training, you're like, no, it's not just my ideas, but these are backed by proper steps.
And it works both ways too, because we have had teachers that have really been concerned about a child, and we go in and we walk through, they do the checklist on everyone, and what they end up finding out is that this child that they were concerned about is actually right where they're supposed to be. It's just that the other children some of the other children are so far ahead. Mm-hmm. So the checklist works both ways. We don't want to talk to parents about concerns that are not true concerns.
What are some of those checklist stuff?
The ones that we use. Mm-hmm. So the state DHR has Alabama has a state training program now called Alabama Early Learning Guidelines, and it's Carol McGuire, who was the project manager before me. Mm-hmm. She was involved in that committee that created that training, and they have a developmental checklist with their training program. And providers can get that free. They just have to contact DHR and ask for that. We have a checklist that we've used for years that it really took into consideration several different ones, and we just put it together. Mm-hmm. We use the CDC checklist a lot.
Yeah.
Early intervention has checklists, so we don't really care what checklist it is, as long as they are using one.
What would be like a specific example of one of those bullet points on a checklist?
Something like a child a 2-year-old, a child is talking, has 50 words by 2 years old, or something like that. Just going through the different ages and the different domains of development and making sure.
So it's very specific there. It gives the teacher a lot of guidance, which I don't think you want as much subjectivity in that type of thing.
Right. It's there's not a lot of subjectivity. Yeah. You can definitely check it off.
That's very good. And so you kind of touched a little bit, there are other trainings available for child care providers. Mm-hmm. And you spoke a little bit about the difference, but if you could hone in on the difference between CCEP and some of the others available. Okay. So
a lot of the other training programs through the state, it's all free, it's all funded by DHR. Because child care providers are required to have so many training hours in so many different areas. There's health and safety, there's supervision, there's all of those. We have different quality contractors that kind of cover all of those different areas, and then ours is specific to inclusion. So where child daycare providers are not required to have inclusion specific training, mm-hmm. All of our trainings fit into their minimum standards. So they can come to us to get trainings that go towards their training hours, but then they're also getting that extra with the inclusion.
Yeah, the inclusion is like an added bonus there. And what are
Yes.
some specific inclusion things that you guys do?
So we talk a lot about, as far as training goes,
Mhm.
we talk a lot about adapting the environment, just simple things they can do to adapt the environment. We address behavior a lot, sensory processing a lot. Those are topics that they're not typically getting from the other
Yeah.
training programs. But another big thing that we do is the technical assistance.
Talk a little bit about that.
Okay, so which is what we're really proud of. We do a lot of training, but again, there are a lot of programs that do training. So we think we're most effective going into the classroom. So if they have a particular concern with a child who maybe isn't able to sit during circle time or something like that, it doesn't have to be a child with a disability. We just want all children to be included in every aspect of their day, whatever the reason. So, we'll just go in and we'll model a circle time, and we'll model like strategies, things they can do with fidgets, or, giving that child their space, like their own designated space to be able to sit so that their friends aren't touching them, or whatever the need is. We're really proud of the technical assistance because it's practical, hands-on strategies
That's
that they can
huge.
use.
So most of the training happens outside of the classroom.
Yes.
So you either logging into a webinar or coming to a conference or what have you.
Yes.
So you guys go into the classroom
Yes.
on an individual daycare level, and you'll sit during a classroom and say, this is what we see, and kind of give a report at the end of this is how you should do it, or this is what we recommend.
Yes, that's what we do. That's what our developmental specialists primarily do. They do less of the training and more of the in the classroom practical application strategies. And then not only do we do that, but we're never going to make a suggestion or recommendation to a teacher without giving them the tools that they need to actually follow through with that.
Yeah.
So if there's something that we suggest that they need, whether it be a cozy, calming corner for a child that has some sensory overload or some sensory defensiveness, and they just need a break, we're going to bring them the beanbag, and we're going to bring them the headphones to kind of block out the noise and things like that. So we're never going to just tell them what they need and leave them.
Yeah.
We're going to go in and set it up for them so that they'll have that.
Now, with that specific example with the beanbag and the headphones, do you provide that?
Yes.
So that's
So
funded through DHR.
Yes, we have funding for that because they don't want us to just tell them what to do. They want us to show them what to do and then leave the materials for them to be able to do it.
Yeah. That's a really cool thing, because I feel like most would be, hey, just log onto this webinar or watch this video, but actually going in there, seeing what can change or tweak a little bit, and then incorporating that pretty, right after you leave or in the next week or two.
And that's huge for us. I mean, that's where we see the most impact, I think, is when we actually go into the classroom. So
I've never been a daycare teacher or supervisor, but to me, I don't know if I would pick up on that. Like, I'd just be like, sit down. We're doing, our small group stuff right now. Just be quiet. You can do it.
Yes.
But it's a totally different perspective,
Yeah.
Going through your training there. Like, hey, why don't you just give them a little bit more space?
It is. And we actually have, a brand new training that DHR gave us. We were fortunate enough to get some additional funding this fiscal year, and for the fiscal year starting October 1. It's called Choose to Include training, and it's 4 hours of training that is very hands-on. I know we break it into 2 days, so it's not 4 hours of just sitting there, but there is a lot of hands-on. We'll make a visual schedule, and we'll make a song choice board and things like that. We do a lot of visuals with them. We talk about ADA and how that impacts them as daycare providers, because sometimes with minimum standards, which is what they follow with the state, that they also have to follow ADA guidelines. So, I'm not sure that, we're really trying to drive that home. You can't turn away a child just because they have a special need. You can't do that. So, those are the things that we walk them through with that training. And then the second day is more fun and hands-on, and, but with that, they get, where I was going with that is with that, they get a kit for their childcare center that it's over $350 worth of materials that they can use just as simple adaptations, like that they can just grab if they have a biter, some chewy tubes that they can just grab out of the thing. We give them a laminator, we give them Polaroid cameras so they can make visuals, all those things. We leave that for them so that they can have those things on hand.
It's like a goodie bag. So
it
like
is.
You go through the training and you're
a very nice goodie bag, yes.
$350 goodie bag.
Yeah.
I imagine that it would be easier for a daycare provider or a teacher to be more ADA compliant with visual disabilities as opposed to something that's maybe not as a parent.
Sometimes, it just a lot of the calls that we get, I would say probably over half of the calls we get to come out to do a technical assistance visit or an observation in the classroom is behavior specific. So that is a big one, and how to handle those behaviors when you have all of these other children.
Yeah.
Especially with a child who may be harmful to themselves or to their peers. So that is a lot of what we get. The physical disabilities are usually pretty simple adaptations, as long as, home centers, you get into a little bit of a different, some other challenges as far as, ramps and things like that if they have a physical disability. But the behaviors is the tricky one.
I feel like sometimes you'll see that later in life too. I've heard stories of families that have a son or a daughter in a community home or a setting like that, and there are some behavioral things there, either with their family member or with others in the house, and how important it is to go through those earlier in life, and hopefully they carry with you. But a big part of that would be not just in the classroom but also at home. So is there a training that the teacher will give to the parents, or how does that work?
So one of the things that we offer with our training, we're funded, again, specifically for the daycare teachers, but parents are always invited. Anyone in the community is invited to attend any of our trainings. And we do offer community trainings that parents can come to as well. So we always encourage childcare centers and home providers to share the information about our community trainings with their families in case they do want to or are available to join us. But another aspect of what we do is we try to find a time during the day whenever we provide a training to do a parent resource or information table is what we call it. And so we'll go when the parents are coming in and out to check out their child, and basically it's explaining to them, this is who we are, this is what we've been doing with your teachers. We have over 50 brochures on different types of development, whether it be issues, red flags, or just typical development. And then we're there to ask them to answer their questions about concerns. So that's one way that we address the parents. We do a lot of trainings with the teachers on how to communicate with parents.
I feel like that's a big thing, because if everything's going well in the classroom, if it doesn't get communicated.
Right. That's one of our big topics is we have two, and one is just working on as a team with the child care professional, the therapist, the parents, as well as the child, and then also just one on these are the steps that you would take to share your concerns if you with parents about their child, which is a very sensitive subject.
Yeah, it can be there. Now, can the parent come to the technical assistance visit?
They can.
So they can be in the room for that
they
class
absolutely
period.
Can. Yeah, when we get parents call us too directly.
That's my next question.
Yes, we do. We get a lot because they and a lot of times, especially if we have, because we at UCP we also have families who have children in early intervention, and a lot of them are in childcare, so they're aware of our program. So if they have a child that's receiving services that's in childcare, they may actually talk to their child's childcare center to contact us. But also if we're going in to do a technical assistance visit, like if the parent calls us, then we'll try to set up a time where it's convenient for the parent, the teacher, the director, everyone involved to meet us at the childcare center in the classroom, so that they can also see some of the strategies, because they don't know what to do. That just because a child is not is struggling in the classroom, they may not be having the same struggles at home. Yeah. So they're real confused when the teachers reporting that their child is, but that's a different environment. There's there's several children. They may be the only child at home, and vice versa. So the parents always
That would be a thing for me if I was a parent. I'm not a parent yet, but if I was a parent and the teacher was like, hey, your son or daughter's been a little disruptive in class. And I'm like, well, I don't see any of that.
Right.
We've been great here. And they go, well, it's actually being disruptive for the other kids. I think I would work with the school, but if nothing changed, then I would contact you guys and say, hey, can you guys come in and kind of be a mediator here? I'll come to the technical assistance day when you guys are there. But that would be my process there. And you see that happen?
We do. We get a lot of phone calls.
Yeah.
We do get a lot of phone calls from families too who are looking for childcare, especially if they have a child with a special need. We cannot really, unfortunately, refer childcare centers because we train so many, and there's always a turnover with, just as with everything, but in childcare there's a lot of turnover, so we can't guarantee that just because a childcare center's had training that
they're the best fit for that family,
right? Because they're all different. So some children, no matter what, they may do better in a smaller environment with just 6 other children versus a huge childcare center,
a 30-person class.
Right. So
now CCEP, it stops at 8.
Yes.
Available till 8. What's available for the family after that? Is there a similar service available during the school years?
I am not aware of any. Suzanne, are you aware?
I'm not aware either.
Or I was going to say even after the school into long-term community living. I didn't know if there were those resources there or not.
I don't know of any actually, and we're again, usually we'll go in school age, after school care programs and things like that. But once they pass that, that would be. There's definitely a need for that.
I like how you said there's also after school programs. So normally when I think about daycare, I think about daycare providers. I think about during the day when I'm at work or something like that. Excuse me. But you guys also do after school programs. Is there a difference there that you notice?
Or
not too much.
I will say that we don't get a lot of interest from our after school programs as much as we do and it may not even be that it's interest. It may just be that they're not as aware that we exist. A lot of the after school programs are located on site at the school system.
Yeah.
So of course that depends on how they're funded as well. But if they're after school programs or school age children that are located at center based programs, then those would be the ones that we probably have more interaction with. But it's definitely, it's a different audience because a lot of times those children, if they do have a special need or a behavior concern, those are already being addressed with the school system. So then we would try to work with getting the family, the childcare center, and the school system to communicate so that everybody's on the same page.
With the after school program, a different environment there and stuff. So. Why the 8?
Why 8 years old?
What's the cutoff there?
I don't. That's a good question. I don't know.
I don't know either.
I don't know why 8 years old.
Spinning around the roulette wheel.
Right. Maybe
we're going with 8.
Yeah.
I've heard birth to 5 before, but I don't remember hearing the 8.
Yeah. So the way we kind of say it is birth to 5 up to 8. I would say primarily, the teachers that we work with are before they get to school. But we can assist with those after school programs.
To go up to 8. And you kind of mentioned some ways that providers can include children with special needs in the classroom. If you could elaborate and give a few more examples of that.
Just go through some of the things that we go through with the new training that we have and with the kit, the things that we provide. A lot of times it's just, bringing more pictures into the classroom so that those kiddos that might be struggling with language, they just have the visuals to go along with it. We'll bring in sign language options for them if they want to add that as another.
Like an interpreter?
Well, just the visuals.
Okay.
Like, teach them. We do have trainings that will teach them like simple signs and things they can do to cut down on frustration. Those are easy things to do to kind of help include children who are just struggling a little bit. Seating is a big thing. So if we have children we have one of the things that sets us apart, which I did forget to mention from other training programs is that we have access here to our therapists. So if we have children that are struggling, maybe sitting in their chair at the table, or we can speak, we can communicate with our therapist, and they'll give us some simple strategies and things we can do, even just putting some shelf liner in the bottom of their seat so they don't slide, or building up the sides so that they fit snug in there so they're not falling over, or a beanbag chair, something that they something they can sit. That helps a child who doesn't have good trunk control, that they can still sit on the floor at circle time. Just simple things like that. So.
Yeah. Those are really cool. I was going to ask it, if a teacher was watching right now and they're having some things going in the classroom, what are some things that they could try in the next week?
All of those are great. Let's see. Some other simple things. We use a lot of masking tape or painter's tape just to block off areas. Designate some of our kids need that visual, like this is my boundary, or even for center time, like this is the boundary for center time. So we use a lot of tape. We use a lot of Velcro, anything Velcro, to help with making choices and things like that, so they're not singled out with, if they have some language concerns. Just all kinds of.
I feel like I normally wouldn't think of those things, but now that you say it, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, definitely. But it normally wouldn't come to me like that. So the training is very crucial and important there. And if you could think of one specific success story.
We always feel successful when we try to get, one of the things we really work with teachers who take our training on is to not wait and call us to come out for technical assistance once you're already, kind of at your wit's end. Like, call us from the very beginning so we can get in there and help you, get a plan and get some strategies in place before you're already just done, so it's always a success. The success stories to me are the ones where we do get to go in, we get in on the front end. They know they've either talked with the family ahead of time. They know a child's coming that has some of these concerns. They call us on the front end. We get in there, work with them, set up some things, and that child gets to stay at the center.
Yeah.
It's always hard when we get called in and they're on their way out, because we don't want to see children at 2 years old being dismissed from Childcare Center. That just kind of sets a tone for, So those are our biggest success stories, is when we can get in there and we can keep them in the center. But we always do a survey at the end of the year where we send out to all of the providers that have statewide that have taken our training or had our technical assistance. And of course we get a minute amount of those back, a fraction of them back. But of the survey, yes, but of the surveys that we got back last year, we had almost 500 children that, as a direct result from working with the CCEP team in their part of the state, that were identified and were receiving services through either early intervention, public school system, or private. So that was huge for us.
That's a really big thing, because getting those supports early and being recognized by the state is I think key for long-term success.
So that's our big success. We really get excited about that, because we know that those teachers, they're the reason that those children are getting the services that they need. So
yeah. Al, how many times can you do a technical assistance?
As many times as they need us. We tell them when they call us that we're available to them as long as we have funding. So, yeah. And we've had funding for, we started in 2000. So
for 19 years now.
Yeah.
I imagine if I was a teacher, I think I would call you guys every year, 3 weeks into my class.
Right.
Yeah.
And it would just be a thing like, hey, you guys are coming out this year, let's do it 3 weeks so we have a little bit of a groundwork here in the classroom. I would do it every year. It's such a good tool, and it helps them. It comes back.
And it's free. Everything we do is free. The training's free. The materials that we provide to support inclusion are free. The technical assistance is free. The parent resources are free. Well, everything's free.
It's not free. It's at no cost to them.
It's at no cost to them, yes. The funding has been provided so that we can provide those things for free.
$350 of good stuff for the classroom.
Right.
Not provided there.
Right.
And then as we get to the close here, is there anything, upcoming events that you would like to highlight?
Well, we just finished this past Saturday. We had an exceptional Saturday training conference. We did it here in Huntsville, and we had 75 providers join us for that. So that was real exciting. So we're going to try to offer those throughout the state, at least once a quarter from now on. So we're excited about that. We have the early intervention conference coming up in October that several of our CEP teams are going to be presenting at. So that's
Quick question. Do you know who is in charge of running that conference?
the early intervention conference. Our executive director, Cheryl Smith, would be a great point of contact for that.
Okay. Is she here today?
She is here today.
Okay. And is there anything that we haven't talked about that you would like to say?
I can't think of anything. Thank you for letting us get the word out.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah.
I think you guys are running a great program, and I didn't even know about it before.
Well, good. Thank you. Yeah.
I'll be an advocate for you guys.
Yes, thank you very much. We appreciate that.
At this point, we're going to go ahead and end the live broadcast, and we will see you guys on Thursday this week with Mr. Lorenzo Brown and Mrs. Anderson. Thank you very much.
Thank you.